I wrote an article in the Financial Times about 10 days ago in which I argued that the problems in the euro area are cultural, and that it is extraordinarily difficult to create essentially what we now call the Eurozone and make it work unless the cultures of the participating countries are very similar. Now, when you separate northern and southern Eurozone, you're talking a really fundamentally different set of cultures. There was a wonderful article in the New York Times about 2 or 3 weeks ago in which the New York Times reporter sat in right on the border between southern Germany and southern France, and spent some time with people who lived on the German side and then moved over to the French side. The French, they all said, behaved like Italians, the Germans like the Swiss. Now, this is a very interesting distinction because it reflects itself in the degree of prudence of the society, which is an innate cultural aspect of the way our societies run. And it's also showing up in what you would expect to see in the best metric I know to pick up culture, the savings rate. The central thrust of this thesis is that the notion that when we went to the euro, that the Italians were going to behave like Germans, or even that the Greeks were going to behave like Germans, turned out not to be the case, that they behaved precisely the way they did before they entered the euro. And the difference is essentially that before they got into the euro, they essentially devalued and adjusted their competitive position. But once they got into the euro, they could not do that. What we have is the northern, this is the northern part of the Eurozone and the southern part of the Eurozone, where essentially there is a unilateral, consistent transfer from north to south. And then the question is, well, how long can that go on? And what we have been seeing, basically, is that as a consequence of this particular shift, you start here, and this is the ratio of consumption of the countries in the southern Eurozone to Germany. They, as a consequence of getting in the euro and getting financed by the credit ratings essentially of the northern members of the Eurozone, were able to build their consumption up at a very rapid pace relative to Germany. Now, as all of these charts have shown, when we run into the crisis of 2008, it does change. But it isn't that goes all the way back here. It's just that the continuous shifting in resources from northern Eurozone to southern Eurozone stops. And it doesn't reverse. The current account balances are still open. They're not closed. They're not getting any larger. In fact, as you remember from the previous one, they're actually now showing some element of decline. But they're not at zero. Parliament yesterday did sort of just barely had, I think, 153 in favor of moving forward in not, coming at the really fundamental issue here. The issue is not the financing of these countries. it is eliminating the need for financing, because we are going from one tranche after the other, where Germany and the Netherlands and the other Northern European countries are essentially being asked to do what West Germany did for East Germany when the Berlin Wall came down, a unilateral transfer. This can go on only for so long politically, and we're beginning to see the effects. We almost ran into a major problem with Finland. Then I thought the one I liked best was Slovakia, which, what we're dealing with here is that because you need unanimous consent, but with the 17 members, any individual country, including Malta, can stop it cold. This is not a viable operation. You cannot go forward with this. The only solution to maintaining a viable euro is, in my judgment, to get the need for the financing down, not to find new means of financing that's kicking the can down the road, but to stop it.